So it feels like it was just yesterday. It was just yesterday, and we were at the foot of Mount Sinai, and the great moment of revelation happened. The mountain trembled. There were all kinds of special effects happening. Cecile B. DeMille captured the moment perfectly in his movie. And we heard the booming voice of God that said, "What's up?" You remember. Other than that, not much. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, think of yourself in a moment like that. Like what would happen to us if that moment happened again? If somehow we felt drawn to gather together at the foot of Mount Rainier, and suddenly the mountain shook and clouds started to appear from all sides of the mountain, and a booming voice sounded, echoed, filled the air completely, like the air would be the screen onto which the voice would be carried, as that actually is what happens in reality. Like, what would be your reaction? I'm really curious. It's like, would we just run in the opposite direction immediately? Right? Right? I mean, the awesomeness of that. And what did that booming voice come to tell us? You shall not murder. Okay? I mean, that booming voice came and said, you shall not murder. That was the 6th commandment. Thousands of years ago. We wrote it down 2,500 years ago. We read from these words multiple times a year for thousands of years. And did you see the news this week?
Yeah.
We have yet to we have yet to comprehend that one. We're still 3,000, 4,000 years back. You shall not be jealous of what your neighbor has. How are we doing on that? Yeah, right? I mean, what I have is nice, but what Bill Gates has, You want me to continue? I mean, really. The 5th one, keep Shabbat. Dedicate a day every week to not do anything, to just be with yourself, meditate, be in family. Don't watch TV, don't be on your computer, just be alive in the space that you occupy. Just rest. Just rest. No shopping, no nothing, just being. How are we doing on that? I think we are going the wrong way with that. And we can't find enough things to keep ourselves distracted, glued to our little or big screens. I mean, there used to be that in America, Sunday, the stores were closed. That's gone. Plus, online is open 24/7. And we wish there could be more hours so we can shop more. To get all the stuff we don't need to fill our empty houses because they represent our empty hearts. And so after this moment of revelation, when we heard that, we said our reaction was, we don't understand any of this. We're gonna ask Moses to tell us what to do. And whatever we hear, well, whatever He tells us, we will do it. And we are hoping that in the doing of it, we'll understand what was shared on that day at Sinai. In the doing of it. So Judaism is not, Judaism because of that, is not a dogmatic religion. It's a praxis. It's something you do. It's not something you believe. There are no precepts. It's in the doing that we, in fact, find our own Sinai within ourselves. Because Sinai will never happen out there. Sinai will ever only happen in here. There is no other place that Sinai can happen. Now, we tell stories as if on the outside of things that actually are unfolding within us. That is what our ancient masters, our ancient sages did when they put the Torah, when they wrote the Torah. They were enlightened masters, and they tried to convey what that revelation means. What does it feel like? But we got attached to the story on the outside. We thought Sinai was a real place. Well, it is, but it's not in this context. And then the next day happened, and we were hangover. You know, we were spiritually hangover. I mean, what do you do after you live through something like that? If you haven't run away like most of us would have. You know, what would you do if you were like sitting in that and then, you know, at the end of the day, you got some rest, you slept, and you woke up the next morning, it's like, oh my goodness, what just happened? What am I going to do with this now? Like, what am I going to do with this? Where am I going with it? I mean, it's too much. What do you mean, I am the Eternal One, embodied in this frail container that is only here for a few numbers of years? What do you mean, I am the disguise that God is wearing right now? What am I going to do with that? That's overwhelming. That's overwhelming, especially because I know how I'm using this container, and it's not really holy. And yet, and Moses really felt into that. He felt into the hangover, the despair. The people were staring into emptiness, wandering around the camp, not knowing where to put it. It's too big. And so we have this week's Torah portion. And this week's Torah portion is called Mishpatim. Mishpatim usually is translated as rules, but really it's a transmission. It's the transmission that Moses felt he needed to do to give people something to hold on to, something concrete, that they could put this awesome, amazing experience and channel it into ways to be in their lives. So it is a code of holiness. It is this week and next week's Torah portion, it continues over 2, is a code of holiness. It's also understood to be the covenant, the first layout of the covenant. You have received this, here's what you're going to do with it. You know, it's always the same spiritual container, right? You have a peak experience. In this case, the word is apropos, right? You have a peak experience. Now you have to come down the mountain and put it in practical terms. Like, how do you receive this, and how do you infuse your life now with those truths that you have received? How is your life changing, right? How is who you are being every moment in the world now different because you received these teachings? And by the way, we don't really have, you know, the 10 Commandments actually happen when God transmits them to Moses. We're not sure actually when those 10 Commandments were really shared, because as you remember, there are 2 sets of tablets, and there are mystical teachings that say that the first set that Moses came down the mountain with he had to break them because the spiritual teachings that were engraved on those tablets in the face of the rest of us worshiping the golden calf, because what we did is we regressed eventually. What Moses understood, that we were not ready for this highfalutin, deep spiritual teachings, so he broke those tablets, went back up, and got the 10 Commandments instead. Maybe humanity was more ready for the 10 Commandments than for whatever was on the first set of tablets. On Tuesday at the Kabbalah class, I'm going to actually spend some time on those 10 Commandments. But the covenant we're asked to do overarchingly in chapter 22, verse 30, God sets the tone for what the covenant will be, what the code of spiritual practice will be. And God starts with an injunction. Be a holy people to me. Be an Am Kodesh. Be a holy people to me. And really, our tradition has taken this as kind of our raison d'être. I would say, if I spoke French, I would say that. But I'm not really. So just bear with me. Our reason for being, to put it in English, is to be holy, to be a sacred nation in the world, right? To be an example of what it looks like to be a sacred nation in the world. We have better days than others, but we're really trying. But I was stunned by that injunction, that the umbrella underneath which all the rest of Jewish practice falls. Be holy. That's a tough one. Because how are we going to do that? Right? I mean, we look at each other, we look at ourselves in the mirror, and God has told us to be holy. And I'm looking at myself, and that's a far away reach. Like, I don't know how to get from here to that. And however many paths and practices you've given me, I'm not sure if I can ever reach the state or the stage or whatever that is, where I can say to myself, well, now I am holy. Like, what would that even look like? I mean, would that mean that I have to be a monk in a monastery lost on the side of a mountain somewhere? Is that what holy looks like? What is that? I don't even know what that looks like. Show me someone. Maybe I can learn from someone who is holy, but who would dare to ever walk the earth and tell people, hey guys, I'm holy. I mean, look at me. I'm wearing holy clothes that are made from holy whatevers, and I'm only breathing holy air so that even inside, you know what I mean? It's like, what? How do, it's not doable. Like, how did God start this covenant with us by asking of us something that is not humanly achievable? Be holy. It's like the covenant that God wanted us to get in with God is already impossible. It's already abrogated. It's already dissolved, because there is no way we're going to be able to fulfill our part of the deal. We can't do that. It's not humanly possible to achieve holiness. How are we going to achieve holiness? So we have a problem. I mean, it's literally the day after the revelation at Sinai, and we are already, the word that I was going to use next. So how do we solve this? How do we still engage in this in a way that is full of integrity? How do we live this life now with integrity, knowing what is being asked of us? I think the question we have to ask ourselves really is not what is the answer to what God has asked us, but we have to ask ourselves, who is actually listening to this? Who is listening to God saying, you are to be holy to me as a people? Like, who is listening to this? Now, what do I mean by who is listening to this? Because if that which is listening inside of us to these words is the little self, the ego, then the ego, who is extremely competitive, who really wants to be holy, who believes it can achieve holiness, right, is the one who is going to put on the outside what being holy means. And the ego is going to look for whatever is out there to affirm holiness. So it's going to, it's going to dress a special way. We know how holy people dress, right? Saris and, all this very loose clothing and whatever, Let your hair grow and you got a long beard, whatever that, So the ego is going to look for attributes, for things to connect to that can be labeled holy, and is going to want to surround itself with all of those little Post-it notes that say holy on it. That's what the ego is going to try to do. And because of that, it'll never achieve it, because there is an infinite number of little Post-it holy notes that you can put on yourself in every place, in every moment, to affirm for yourself, you are holy now. Because the ego also doesn't believe it is holy. So it's going to forever continue to search whatever it needs to do to be that perfect, holy ego. And it's going to do that with anger, with determination. If it means stepping on others, he'll do that. That's really not really holy. So if we hear this as a command, if we hear these words as a command, you shall be holy. Be a holy people to me. Be a holy people. And we hear that, it's a command. We've been commanded to be holy. We got to do it. Then we enter the world of contraction. Do you feel yourself contracting? If I tell you now, go and be holy, suddenly you have to have 613 commandments, because 612 might not make it. Suddenly you have to dress, black pants, white, you have to dress holy way. Suddenly you have to have all the accoutrements, we say in French, I don't know how you say it in English, of what it is to be holy, right? But all of that, it feels like very constricted, very narrow. It feels like we are resisting something. We're trying to get something. And it's like almost we're fighting something. As this place of being really contracted around the idea of being holy. And so we create a lot of forms, a lot of shapes, a lot of what we call in our tradition fences over fences over fences, to make sure that our practices remain completely whole and holy and sacred. And it's so suffocating. I feel into the places when your body tenses, when there's something you want and it's always thwarted, you can never get to it. How do you feel when that happens? Right? We feel this. I'm trying. You see my hands? They are doing that automatically almost. Right? It feels tense. It feels I gotta get. It's a striving. But if we hear it not as a commandment, but as a statement. Be holy. Be a holy people to me. God is not commanding us. God is reminding us. It's not a command, it's a statement. Now, how do you be holy if you are already holy? Because that's what the statement is. It's like holiness is not to be found anywhere, not to be pursued anywhere. It's like happiness is not to be pursued anywhere. It's already here. And the way to find our happiness, our holiness, our forgiveness, or whatever it is we yearn for, is to go like this. Is to, in fact, open, is to become expansive, from contraction to expansion, from contraction to expansion, expanding always, always. And that's ultimately the only true practice. Is every moment that you feel in the contraction that moment is inviting you into, see if you can expand around that. While at the same time understanding that life itself is an ongoing movement of contraction and expansion, contraction and expansion. Your heart is doing it right now. Your lungs are doing it right now, God willing. Every moment, the universe is actually constructed, is already in this movement of contraction and expansion, contraction and expansion. Look at our lives. There are moments in our life that are very contracted, tense, closed off. We feel like we can't breathe. And there are moments where we feel, oh, I love to hike Mount Rainier because it gives me that sense when you at the foot of at the mountain, right? We're back there. I guess we always come back there. And you look around and you see, when it's a sunny day, you see Canada. You see Oregon. It's amazing the vista that you get from the mountain. The expansiveness of it. I remember one day hiking and staying for hours on the mountain and feeling the expansion of it and feeling my being completely opening. The song that came for me, and I shared that at some point, I don't know when, but was Rafe Perlman's song, Beloved. I am in love with you, I am in love with you always. I am in love with you, I am in love with you always. That was the song from my heart, because everywhere I look, that's what came up. I looked at a tree, I looked at a rock, I looked at the mountain, I looked at a bush, I looked at a flower. I am in love with you, I am in love with you always. And then I had to walk down the mountain. And at the base of the mountain, I got into the parking lot and I got into my car and I was driving down the mountain. And I felt as I was driving down, I felt that I was contracting and contracting and contracting as I was entering into civilization again. The space we inhabit is a place of great contraction. And so our work is going to be from now on to notice when we are contracting and to expand again. I am holy. I don't need to look for it. I just need to realize it when I am opening. When I am expanding, that being is sacred. That being is holy. I am at war with no one. I am at peace with the world, with myself. I breathe freely and fully. So this verse is not about constricting us into becoming all holy. It is removing the veil that is hiding our already existing holiness. How can you not be holy? You are the manifestation of the Most Holy. And only when you know yourself to be holy, then you'll know others to be holy as well. And that changes everything. There is a verse in our tradition, and I'll close with that, in a way to introduce the next song. A verse that we recite every morning in our Orthodox prayer books. It's actually one of the opening verses of traditional morning prayer service every morning. And it says right there, as we get ready, it's really because it's the introduction, we get ready freely for praying. It's reminding us, Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehora hi. Elohai, you who manifest as me, as this being. The neshama in Kabbalah is the soul that is the interface between the highest level of consciousness to the most material aspects of creation. Elohai, oneness manifesting as this being, as me. The neshama, the soul that you planted in me, natata bi, planted like planting a seed. It's like it's agricultural, that word, right? The soul that you implanted in me is pure. Tehora, tehora he is pure. See, Judaism starts not with you're born in sin. Judaism starts with your innermost soul is absolutely pure. Who you are in your absolute essence is holy, sacred, and pure. You just forgot. So expand and remember.